Welcome back. You're dialed in to Shipshape TV, boat improvement that's easy to comprehend.
Welcome back. Just before the break, Steve Schultz, along with myself, we're starting the process of applying a topside paint onto our Bertram 31 called Perfection. Well, we have both now flown clear across the country, and we're in Southern California. The Pacific Ocean is right behind us. And Steve, this is a town called Oceanside, which is just between San Diego and Los Angeles. And I've been noticing here at the marina that a lot of boat owners will hire diving services to get into the water. Water's pretty cold here in the Pacific Ocean. And they will scrub the bottoms of their boats. And that's because they're using a hard bottom paint, and you need to do that. Talk to me about what's in a conventional hard bottom paint.
Well, John, the origins of the hard bottom paints really go back to World War II and in the 40s and the 50s. They consist of copper to prevent fouling and a binding system to hold that together, and then of course there's a color pigment in there.
Okay, a binder is a type of glue, and I've been in your factory in Union, New Jersey. I've seen you guys make the bottom paints, and conventional bottom paints have a lot of copper in them. Why is that?
Well, because the binding system, John, is actually not that sophisticated. So the copper gets bound within that. And that's actually the reason why oftentimes boat owners will have a diver scrub the bottom of the boat. They want to get rid of that dead, spent layer of film, so they expose fresh film underneath it. It's not necessarily the most sophisticated way to formulate a bottom paint, but it does prevent fouling.
Okay, back in the 40s, kind of think of the way people were making phone calls back then versus today. We have this cell phone technology. Okay, where you can take pictures and you can have your music and everything else. Technology has, you're still making a phone call, but technology has really advanced here. The same thing has happened in bottom paint. A lot of people are real stubborn, and it's just because they don't know the advantages of the softer ablative bottom paints. And I see that we have some here. Talk to us about ablatives, Steve.
Well, ablative bottom paints, John, are meant to take a lower amount of copper and put it in a binding system that holds it together and washes away as the boat goes through the water.
Okay, well, wait a minute. If we're losing the copper, are we losing the working power?
Actually, John, you're getting more copper to the surface in an effective way because you're washing away the old, dead, spent paint film.
So even though there's less copper, it's more effective.
That's correct. It's much like a cold capsule where it releases just enough each day to prevent fouling, and that's in the technology of the paint.
Okay, now I've heard that the conventional hard bottom paints are faster in the water, they give you more speed, and less fuel burn. Is that the case?
That's not true, John, actually, because what happens with the hard bottom paints, they get brittle. If a boat owner were to own a boat for 8 years and continuously paint that paint film, that hard paint film gets thicker and thicker and thicker. As a result, it starts to get a bit brittle. And it's not uncommon to look at the bottom of a boat and see paint chips that come off of the bottom of that, and they just apply more paint over it. The reality is, John, the bottom is actually getting more rough. Additionally, that hard binding system is still there, but the copper has come out. If you looked at that under a microscope, you'd see Swiss cheese. That's roughness. It's not what we're looking for when it comes to fuel efficiency.
Okay, and roughness in the water equates to drag,
Correct.
And that's going to increase your fuel costs.
Right.
Okay. Also, when you're removing these hard bottom paints after years and years and years of application, man, that is a chore. You got to grind it off. You've got all the environmental implications with grinders and vacuum systems and all that. But there's a better way, and that's what I want to talk about today here, Steve. Ablatives, what happens when the boat's going through the water with an ablative anti-fouling paint on it?
Well, with an ablative paint, just a little bit of film is washing away at a controlled rate over time. The more sophisticated the ablative, the better that polishing rate. That's why, John, you can apply it to a 4 or 5 knot sailboat, or you can put it on a 45-mile-an-hour power boat. In the same harbor, you can get the same long life out of the paint. It's just a more efficient way to prevent fouling.
So if you're going fast in a boat hull, okay, and you're using ablatives, it's not going to wash away in a month.
That's correct, John, and it's proven day in and day out in the commercial vessel industry where ships are moving across the world 300 days a year, and they all use paints that wash away and get smoother with age because it yields the efficiency they're looking for in a vessel moving constantly.
Okay, so we don't have to spend money to grind it off. It wears off.
Correct.
It is more effective. We don't have to spend the big money on all the huge amounts of copper because it's a more effective way to deliver copper to the surface. Okay? We're going to go faster. We're going to spend less money on fuel. And you don't need to get a diver in the water every week scrubbing your bottom. You don't do that with ablative. Okay? Now, those guys have a very valuable service. If you need a zinc changed, or if you need a prop changed, or if if they are going to go down there and they're going to get off some grass or some algae, have them use a soft rag or have them use a soft sponge. Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Hey, right now we need to take another time out, but keep it right here because when we come back, we're back in Florida. We're going to be finishing up on the Bertram 31. We'll cover it right after this.